Hi there, Ana Cortez here. Thanks so much for watching. Today we are going to talk about the hijacking of time. And time is something we certainly all possess, and it is one of our greatest possessions. And I would assert that it is our perception of time that largely determines the perception of ourselves. And so, is it possible that time, or our perception of it, has somehow been hijacked or stolen or altered within the course of history? And this has changed the perception of ourselves on a fundamental level and perhaps lulled us into a great forgetting, a forgetting of our own nature. And so, a fascinating question. And I want to give a quick shout out to John Levi for his channel here on YouTube, and which provided great inspiration for me to make this video. So I'll put a link to his video beneath this one. So, to the topic of time hijacking, a large topic, lots of places to start, lots of roads to check out and to investigate in this question, but we're going to try to keep this video very concise. And so one of the main places, one of the most obvious places to begin looking for clues in this question is to the calendar system under which we find ourselves, right? And the calendar acts as this unseen, invisible ruler when it comes to time. It dictates the way that we think of time. And right now, as a globe, as a world, we find ourselves under the rule of this calendar called the Gregorian calendar, right? And there's a few things I find interesting about this, a number of things. For one, I think it's interesting that this Gregorian calendar was only initiated in the 1500s, really not that long ago from an historical perspective. And I think it's interesting that this guy was a pope, right, connected with the church. I also think it's interesting that this guy's name was Gregory the 13th. 13 being an extremely prominent number within the art of natural timekeeping. But what Pope Gregory gave us certainly has nothing to do with natural time, and the only place we find the number 13 is in his name. So I think that's kind of like a little funny cosmic jest there. And what else about this guy? Well, I'm going to jump over to here now. Let's take our investigation in a little bit of a left turn. This is a booklet by Jose Arguelles and someone named Valum Votan. And it's called Stopping Time. It's a little free online book. And the subtitle is A 13 Moon Primer. And there is that number, 13. And Jose is an interesting guy. Jose is interesting for a few reasons, but the calendar proposed by Jose, and his work was primarily calendar work, was proposed after exhaustive research into the Mayan understanding of time, right? And the Mayan it was very complicated. These guys were masters of time. They had over 20 different calendars that all synchronized together like giant cogs within a master clock. And together, those cogs rotated and cycled and meshed together and created a calendar accuracy that is unrivaled by anything we can come up with today. And so this is what Jose Arguelles studied. And I like this little book. It's really got some great chapter titles here. Very compelling little book. And I like this little section on page 4 because, well, you'll see. Let's take a look at it. Right here in the middle of this paragraph, if you consider that a calendar is a program that creates a spell, take away the calendar and break the spell. I love comparing the calendar program to a spell. Take away the calendar and break the spell. Just see what happens when you do this. One easy stroke and the old spell will be broken. And here we go. Jose's proposal after studying all of the Mayan, calendar material is a new calendar of 13 perfect months of 28 days each, right? Sort of a very simple calendar with very practical use that corresponds to natural timekeeping. Just like the Mayans themselves had a more simple version of timekeeping of calendar for the general population for everyday use. And I like this little piece here on page 34 of this booklet. It says, okay, let's keep this one point in mind. A calendar is a programming device. It programs the culture, the people, the society that uses it. It creates a feedback loop between the mind of the user and its program. The nature of the calendar determines the nature of the society. The Gregorian calendar is arbitrary and irregular. You would hardly ever think about any natural factors by using this calendar, which we do, right? January 1st doesn't correspond to any solstice or equinox or anything natural at all. With a program like that, of course, you wouldn't think of the seasons or the moon. When you use this calendar, it's almost as if this calendar is meant to keep you out of phase with nature, right? Hence the great sleep that we seem to be under as a people. And so there you go. And the Gregorian calendar is really not the first calendar that we've had historically that took us out of sync with nature. It happened much earlier. The hijack actually happened, or the greater part of the hijack, I should say, actually happened more like about 100 BC, when the Julian calendar by Julius Caesar was brought in. And the Gregorian calendar is really just a small adjustment to the Julian calendar. So what we use today is essentially still the Julian calendar. So that's a pretty long spell that we've been under. A 2,000-year spell. And before the Julian calendar is really when we see something different. And that was the Roman calendar. And here we are on this Australian Academy of Science website, a nice little website, keeping track of time, talks about the difference between lunar and solar calendars and calendars which incorporate both lunar and solar cycles. And here we see this explanation. The Roman months were divided into periods of days marked by calendae, nonae, and ides. The calend was the first day of the month, coinciding with, the new moon. So here we see a big switch. The nonae was the day when the half moon occurred and fell 8 days before the ides. The ides was the 15th day of March, May, July, and October, and the 13th day, there's that magic number 13 again, of the other months, and coincided with the full moon. The diagram below illustrates these 3 milestones. And so the Roman calendar prior to 100 BC had months that kept us in cycle with the lunations. And what an improvement. What a big improvement. And now I want to show you something rather mind-blowing. Okay, here is something rather mind-blowing from the Playing Card Oracles, the book written by my father and myself. And here we have the natural timekeeping as it is perfectly reflected within a deck of regular playing cards. Regular playing cards is a natural timekeeping device. And what a shocker. And of course, we don't think in natural timekeeping, we don't think in natural cycles because we haven't lived under a natural calendar for 2,000 years. So we look at playing cards over and over and we don't see what's right in front of us. And so we have some of the rudimentary natural calendar correspondences looking us in the face from playing cards, 52 weeks in the year, of course. Of course, and how many people even connect that simple fact? Just that one top line there in their mind. 4 suits, right? The deck is equally divided by 4 suits, just as the year is equally divided by 4 seasons. 13 cards in each suit, lucky number 13, 13 weeks in each season, and 13 lunar cycles in a year, each of 4 weeks. So you can look at that either way. Total of numbers in each suit. If you count all the numerical value of each card, you get 91, which is the exact number of days in a season. You know, these numbers do not come about by accident. And finally, the total of numbers in the deck equals 364, right? 91 numbers in a suit. Take that times 4 and you get 364. And lo and behold, there's 364 days in the fixed lunar year. And what is a fixed lunar year? A fixed lunar year is the exact calendar proposed by our friend Jose Arguelles. 13 months, each of 28 days. This is the fixed lunar year. And so let's talk about the hijacking of the natural calendar in playing cards just for a moment. Because much as the calendar was hijacked, right? The Roman calendar and calendars before the Roman calendar were hijacked. So too have our cards been hijacked because it's a calendar too. It was subjected to the same hijacking. And, it's easy to give away what you don't recognize as valuable. If you don't see what you have, you can easily be swindled out of it. And I think that's essentially what happened with playing cards. People have been fascinated by playing cards the world over for many centuries. But I think it's largely unconscious as to why we are so drawn to them. But we haven't really known what to do with playing cards. We sit and play these insidious games that have nothing to do with the calendar that is in the cards, that has nothing to do with the actual structure of the deck itself. I think it's interesting that there is not one single game that uses the natural calendar in the cards. Not one single game. But the only game I know of that uses time or uses a calendar is the game of prophecy. And it is my firm conviction that playing cards, as we call them now, were actually created for something much more prophetic in nature and as a mystical device, right? To bring us back to these frequencies that are represented in playing cards, the frequencies of natural time. And, now you're talking about card reading territory, right? Card reading territory. And this is precisely where the hijack occurred. So I think it's interesting that the church fathers went out of their way to condemn playing cards. I mean, why would they care? But they did. And this provides some of the most early records we have of the existence of playing cards. It's amazing, these writings that have been uncovered by different clergymen, etc., that describe the deck in use at that time in such great detail. It really has done us a favor, a big favor from a historical perspective. But in centuries gone by, the church went out of their way to try to stomp out playing cards. And in the 1400s, after playing cards were already well established in Europe, there was a new deck introduced in Italy. It was commissioned by royal families, very much connected with the church, and it was created, ostensibly at that time for a game known as Tarocchi. And the new deck at this time is simply called Tarot. So another card was added to each suit, and a 22-card trump suit plopped on top. And like I said, it's easy to give away what you don't recognize as valuable. But this deck of 14 cards per suit was just for a game. It was a specialty deck for a game called Tarocchi, and no harm done. But then, in the 1700s, is when the hijacking really occurs. Because in 1781, right, more than 300 years after the invention of tarot. In 1781, the French Protestant clergyman and occultist Antoine Coeur, who named himself Coeur de Jablon, published in his massive work Le Monde Primitif, right? The primitive world or the primeval world. His idea that tarot was actually an ancient Egyptian book of arcane wisdom. There is no evidence to support the notion that tarot has an Egyptian lineage. No, there isn't. But in the stir that followed, Etienne responded with another book, blah, 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 How to Entertain Yourself with a Deck of Cards Called Tarot, in 1785, and after that, tarot became a deck for divination. And isn't it interesting? Tarot, which was created for a game, and playing cards, which you can argue were created for prophecy, these two decks, their functions have been switched, right? A great heist. So that's my story. This is what I think. Let me know what you think. And I think it's time to get back to natural time. And it's time to do whatever it takes to get our thinking straightened out. And I think we need new ways to look at and play with our playing cards, whether we are card readers or not, right? Because we all have a relationship with time. And we all have playing cards too. It's so convenient. You have a natural calendar in your house. Thank you so much for watching. I love you, and I'll see you back next time. Bye-bye.